Oh, hello, friends, family, friends of the pod. It's the PlungeFather here on this glorious Taco Tuesday. Hopefully I'm live. I have no idea if I am. This is the first time I've ever broadcast using StreamYard. So can we just make sure that I'm live? Can I get some F's in the chat if you can hear me and my audio is okay and I'm not in 56K? Can I get some F's? F's in the chat, please. There we go. Love that. Another new background. I just shifted a little bit. We're in the plottage or the porch as I call it, and we're gonna be talking a little bit deeper dive than we do on the First Mint Friday show. Really happy to have all of you here. We've got about 146 looks like in here, so it's gonna be a good conversation, a little intimate conversation today. We'll go about 60-90 minutes, depends on how long you guys stay engaged. But before we dive into any of the details, I want to introduce our first guest of the night. He's going to be with us the whole time. One of my favorite follows on Twitter. If you don't follow him, you should. And we're going to bring him in with the same round of applause that we always do for all of our guests. So with that, I will find the video that gives us the applause and play it. It's my guy, Taylor Stein.
How's it going?
It's good. It's good. Welcome to the first ever, I don't even know what should we call it? Let's get some names in the chat. What should we call, if we're going to have a if we're going to have a plunge conversation, deep dive, analytics, strategy, technically focused, more in depth than some of the fun variety show stuff that we do on Friday, what are we going to name this? So we're going to go to the chat. We're going to figure out what should we name this chat. But it's in the works. We're workshopping it. But what I have tonight and what we're going to be talking about tonight at a high level is buying and selling. And I asked one of my favorite Twitter followers, or excuse me, Twitter follows, not followers, my favorite Twitter follows, I will allow him to introduce himself, to come in and share some of his knowledge and his background. So Taylor, the first question that I have, and I'm sure everybody else that doesn't follow you, is who are you? Why should we listen to you? And what's your story with TopShot? What lens are you taking the TopShot world from?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Taylor. I'm a data scientist during the day and TopShot sort of geek at night. I joined back in late January, so not too long ago. And really just after like playing around with the marketplace, started getting really interested in it and trying to figure out how to make like smart buys, right? Like initially I didn't load much into my Dapper, so I had to be pretty like strategic about the moments I was buying and learning a lot. And I've just been having a blast writing and learning about TopShot and writing some articles about it. So I have a newsletter. You all can follow me on Twitter as well. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying it so far.
That's awesome. So for folks that maybe don't subscribe to your newsletter, how do they get? It's a Substack, right?
Yeah, it's on Substack. You can find that it's just called Minted Moment. So you could do mintedmoment.substack.com.
All right, let me pop it in the chat. Mintedmoment.substack.com, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to post that in the chat for anybody else. So that Substack, one of the things, and the part of the reason that I asked you on today, and we've sort of struck up a friendship and a conversation on Twitter, is I saw your first post about pricing on the marketplace. And I think we're going to talk about that in context here and use that as a frame of reference for discussion of what does it look like to be a buyer, a smart buyer in the marketplace as you're scouring through the listings that might exist for a particular player. But then we're going to take that and extrapolate that out to like, what does it mean to be a smart seller, right? Or a strategic seller, I should say, because there's lots of different ways to play these things. But before I do that, and before we do that, I want to get some sense from you, like state of the state. We're in a very weird spot right now. Marketplace opened up late last night with this 90-minute time window. And now as of like, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, it's been now reduced to like 30 minutes that you can have between purchasing moments. So like there was this big outage. So first question, did you get a pack or packs this weekend? And what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I actually got two. I was,
Oh,
super lucky. Snagged one on the first go around of the Seeing Stars, and then snagged a Rising Stars one on Sunday, whatever day that was. Yeah, Sunday.
dang. So what did you crack in the Seeing Stars pack?
Seeing Stars, it was nothing too hot aside from I got a Dame for the Seeing Star.
Okay.
And then Rising Stars, let's see. Nothing super eventful. I got a Denny, the rare right there. Yeah, so I'm holding on to the Denny.
Yeah, I actually saw someone was on Twitter today talking about Denny and like the /4000 base set series 2 is essentially the same price as the
Right.
Rising Star out of like rare out of 2021. Which, there's lots of different ways to think about that. If you think Denny's underpriced, then both of them are way underpriced. If you think that maybe $300 is probably more appropriate for where he might or maybe should be, then it's a different concept. So, okay, so like nothing like crazy fire in the grand scheme of things, but like definitely plus EV, like over a $14 pack or 24. I forget how much it even costs. $14 for Seeing Stars one. I too got a Seeing Stars pack. I struck out on the Rising Stars one. I think I ended up at like 46,000. So I guess after that, like, what was your weekend like, not being able to kind of interact with the marketplace in any meaningful way? Like there was that massive crash basically after the series, the Seeing Stars, where like so many people could list things, but like there were so many people trying to buy the same moments that everything came to a grinding halt, and artificially all these moments started tanking in price even further than they might have dipped, which is very common after pack drops, that like more supply, that the sort of the general thing is a dip as like more supply floods the marketplace, and then things rise back up. But it sort of precipitously fell off the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was your experience with that? Were you trying to buy things? Did you strike out a lot? What did your weekend look like?
I'd say I was trying to buy right after things could hit the marketplace. I've kind of found that it's where everything's like the most volatile, right? If you look at the prices, it's just like a complete, wild goose chase for the first couple hours. Like people are setting prices, and whoever goes first, people are following them behind and kind of just making it up on the fly. And you also get a lot of folks that are maybe unfortunately brand new to TopShot that just open up their first pack and they're like, oh, I can sell this for $50. Let me just throw it on the marketplace. And they underprice it like crazy. So I was definitely in a buying mode. I definitely hit a lot of errors, definitely like failed, got so many emails from Dapper on not picking things up. I was able to swoop up a couple more on the cheap side, or at least at the time looked like they're on the cheap side, but things have changed a little bit over the last couple of days, where maybe deals like I picked up a Chris Paul Seeing Stars for $250 that now I'm looking at it like maybe that wasn't such a good deal.
Right.
But yeah, it was a frenzy. And then going into the weekend of having no activity or not really being able to do anything was an interesting experience for sure. I definitely refreshed the marketplace way too often.
Yeah, I was there as well. I think at one point I threw out a tweet and it was probably my most engaged with tweet over the entire month and a half that I've had Twitter, because I just said hey, if you're concerned about the marketplace, go take a walk, take a break. This is artificial. If your account value is tanking, just calm down. And I think one thing that I want to level set with people, and I've had a lot of conversations about this today, and a lot of things in different discourse and so forth, and on Twitter as well. People are looking at this like they had all of the money that was their account represented when it was at the peak hype cycle, all-time high of everything, and there was no supply at all, and everybody that was coming in was rocketing these Troy Brown Juniors up to $35 or $40, which made Crypto Babe's business model just totally kaput. But when that happens, and when that happened, that is not the sustainable rise, right? That's not sustainable at all. That's not real, right? Just as you might think, we're probably more aligned or more, if you look at where people came in, or a lot of them came in, we're probably a little bit up from that. Maybe things leveled off a little bit with some of the technical issues, but that spike was not now, at least the sustainable place. So I think a lot of people are looking at it and I guess if you did buy in at on February 23rd or whatever it is, and now your account is 30 or 40% down from there, your account value is there. But if you didn't buy everything up there and you bought in before that and it went up and now it's back down to this other level, you need to look at this from a cost basis perspective. What did you put into this? Because right now for me or other people, you still might be 2 or 3 or 4x even, or even more than that if you made some smart choices. Like you're not minus 50%, right? Like
Totally.
you didn't own that all-time high. Yes, there are dips from that, unless you bought in all at that point. If you did, I'm sorry. I hope that we have another massive hype cycle of 4 times as many people coming in and all of that. But I think some people get lost in that. They're like, those gains weren't gains. Those gains were like theoretical.
And it's like, I think you have to sometimes take a loss here and there, right? Like I bought most of my moments before the big hype cycle. Right. I did buy a bunch when it was, skyrocketing up. Same. And I had some of those, like I bought a Jaylen Brown for 165 and I was like, it's only going up. Why not? He's going to be an all-star. And then he's named an all-star and then things level out and it's down at like 55, 60. And I think I looked at that one for the longest time trying to figure out like, all right, I'm just going to hold on to it till I can make a profit or at least break even after the 5%, fee I'm going to pay. But I think it's okay to take a loss on that one, right? Like I ended up being like, you know what, I'd rather have the $55 in my Dapper balance and it's okay to sell it and take a loss here and there if it can like enable you to make different plays in the marketplace and buy packs or whatever it is. So I've just tried to like not stay too attached to it when I do get a loss here and there because it's going to happen, right? It's inevitable.
Yeah, you can't have all winners, right? Like we make picks and things go awry. It does suck to take a big L on something, but to your point, and I think it's a really good one, that like if taking an L or a small L allows you to pivot into something that's potentially you have assessed to be a particularly good buy and like underpriced or anything like that, then that might be a really good way to like, all right, I can get away and cut bait from this thing and like not be super attached to it. LG always says like we should always, and LG, so Luke, for anybody else that doesn't know, like the first mint, LG Doucette, he's one of the guys that, he built the thing. But he says like, everybody should have the, like, what do you take out of the burning house with you list? And like, if, you should take half of your things and say, okay, I can only take half of these with me. Which half am I taking? And then the other half, like cut the fat. And how does that work? It does sucks to take L's if don't take L's if you can avoid it. But if it allows you to pivot into something else or buy some of these lower pricing elements from a Seeing Stars perspective because you want to get into the challenge, think about those things. You use the assets that you have to kind of build the assets that you want. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about you and sort of the work that you're working on. And your first blog post is, again, what caught my eye. So I asked you to prepare a slide deck. I said, hey, come with some homework because I want to talk through with the community, with the folks in the stream, like, what does this look like? How are you looking at being on the buy side, right? As a buyer, how do you assess what's a good purchase price for a particular moment? Not just in terms of like where you think the trajectory of the thing might go or like what the future cost analysis is, but like when you're actually in a listing, when you're actually looking at something and deciding whether or not you should buy it or not, what are the things that you look at? So go, if you can share your screen, I can project and we can just go from there.
Cool. Awesome. Let me get this share going.
All right. I think I can do that. And then I add that there.
Look at that.
All right. Look at that. Beautiful.
Awesome. Yes. Super good question. I think it's a whole different ballgame when you talk about like you're up to bat, right? You're looking at a moment and you want to buy it. And now you're looking at 10,000 to pick from and try to figure out what you want to buy. And I think the way I try to look at it, when you think about like what is a good buy or what is a bad buy, it's a lot easier to come up with logic around like what is a bad buy, like what is a listing that makes no sense to buy, and kind of work backwards from there, right? If I can identify all the things that make no sense to buy, then what's left over are probably decent candidates to think about buying. So the marketplace already does a little bit of this, right? So if you look at listings and you go to explore all, you can sort them by lowest ask ascending. So you got the cheapest ones first. And then you'll also see that TopShot also then does a second sort. So if things are tied, they're going to sort them by serial, lowest to highest. And I kind of just found myself applying some logic in my head, right? I go to the cheapest. I'm probably like a lot of folks scrolling down and kind of just seeing like, well, how far down the list can I get without overpaying too much, right? Like if I can spend $5 more and I can go halfway down the serial list, it might be worth it. So I kind of started coming up with these strategies in my head and then actually formalized it and one day just downloaded all the data and then decided to dive into it. And this is all sort of assuming that the market's still going to act the way it does, which is that lower serial numbers are higher value than higher serial numbers. There's a big jump, right, going from something like 4-digit to 3-digit. But even in the 4-digit range, you'll see that folks are still paying a little bit more for a nicer serial number. So let me go to the next slide here. So what I did today, which is pretty much exactly what I did in my first article that I wrote on Substack, was I went to Marketplace. I pulled up Steph Curry Seeing Stars, and I just grabbed all of the current listings. So this is sort of the madness that you have to wade through when you try to pick which one you want to buy, right? Like if I've made up my mind that I want to buy a Curry, this is sort of what I'm looking at, and it's super overwhelming, right?
So just to illustrate, and I know that it's a little bit challenging. I know that, from a viewer perspective, if you could zoom in just a little bit, I think the resolution is, given the way that the stream is, that would be awesome. So just can you orient us sort of what we're looking at? So the graph obviously represents listings, but sort of what is a listing within that? What does a single data point represent?
Yeah. So let's see. On the x-axis, I got price here. So how expensive? What's the current asking price for the moment? And then the listing, serial number, going vertically. So each circle here represents one listing on the marketplace for this Curry moment.
Okay.
I definitely caught some heat for putting price on the horizontal axis from some finance folks on Twitter. So apologies for that, but I just like the way it looks. So that's kind of how I'm going to do it. So yeah, each scatter point here represents a single listing, and you can see you can see some bands, right? You see a lot of people like to price things right at 500, right at 550. Like you can kind of see some interesting trends just from a even psychological aspect of how do folks price things.
Okay, so if we're looking at this, like if I was trying to find the cheapest, it's the furthest left, right? So probably up in that 8,000 to 10,000 one, maybe that one to just like third down from the top, just kind of like maybe bumping out a little bit, or maybe that 7,500-ish one that's on the top of the little 3 bucket right there. That one might just like be a smidge lower, maybe $1 lower than everybody else.
Right. So if your strategy is purely just cheapest, the listing page kind of does that for you. Just sort ascending in price, and you're ready to go. But it gets a little trickier when you're willing to spend a little bit more for a better serial.
Okay. And so I guess, do you have like particular thresholds, or just like what feels right for like how much you're willing to spend at a particular threshold?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it really depends on the moment, right? I don't think you can just apply one strategy to everything, right? So for something where it might be like a base moment that's part of a challenge, and the vast majority of its value is from its utility for the challenge, I would be a little bit more hesitant to like overpay for something, right? If I'm trying to flip it, I'm just probably looking for the cheapest one possible, expecting it to go up so I can sell it for more or use it in the challenge. But if I keep it for the challenge afterwards, it's probably not going to retain much value, and I'm going to be kind of stuck holding the bag that I paid an extra 25% for a better serial on a common that no one necessarily wants. So I kind of just walk through the same logic of, we start here with over 1,200 listings, and the first sort of rule that I try to follow is, the nice thing is the marketplace makes sellers listings at whole digit prices, right? There's no like $19.50. It's just $19 or $20. So if you imagine we look at all of these Currys here that are listed at 500, I don't think you can make an argument for why you would buy any of them other than this lowest serial one, right? Serial number 2,000, 4,000, all the way up to 10,000. I can't come up with a reason why you'd want to buy those over buying the best serial that your dollar can get you, sort of for that price point. And I think that's a concept that folks probably do already, right? Just scrolling through the listings and trying to look at what the different price tags get you. But once you do that, it's pretty powerful, right? So what I did here is, for each price, I found the best serial for each price. So those are the red ones. So you can see for this 500 stack, the best one is right here. Everything else doesn't really make sense to buy. And if we hide the other ones, now we're down to only these. So we've gone from 1,200 to 98 listings, and these are just applying like one step of logic, like the only ones you should ever consider buying, right? Like I if someone has a reason, maybe a birthday or some other serial that makes sense, but if you're just like generally, at a holistic level, I don't think you can make an argument for the other 90% that we already sort of removed from there. And then there's another step that we can take to kind of then further comb down this list and filter out more of them.
Right. I see Billy in the chat mentioning like a really good example. I'd rather have Curry's birthday 1988 than a 950, right? There's some, relevant ones out there. I have a buddy who has like a Joel Embiid 1876 or 2176. That's his like jersey number plus he's on the 76ers type of thing. So there's all sorts of ways to do that. And it's very, very difficult to pull any of that meaningful stuff out. But this seems to make sense to me. And lots of people are asking in the chat, like, how do you make a graph like this? We've had some help from the guys at the Evaluate.Market for scraping some of this data down. I imagine that with more time, there will be more tools out there, whether paid or otherwise, that will allow folks more uniform access to some of this stuff. But there's lots of creative ways to get at this if you have the right technical chops, which I think you were doing before as well, kind of on your own.
Really, I mean, it can be done. It can be done if you want to roll up your sleeves, right? Like all I'm doing is loading the page and downloading the HTML, and you just read through the HTML, and there's all the listings, right? So it can be done. It's just you got to roll up your sleeves to do it. It's a bit of work, but hopefully this is more of like a illustrative tool for how to apply kind of the logic. And I would say when I do this, I'm doing it after I look for those serials that kind of catch my eye, right? Like maybe a super round number or like a birthday. Like I'm so happy, but I snagged the Halliburton birthday serial yesterday or 2 days ago, and I've been on cloud 9 ever since.
So this is going to make me maybe feel old. And Taylor, I think we're probably roughly the same age, but like, when was he born?
So this is the thing. I feel like a lot of serial numbers, they stand out as like a potential birthday, right? You see something like, I don't know, 3896. You're like, oh, that could be someone's birthday, but his birthday is.
Oh, you mean like month, day, year?
Yeah, I wanted the full thing. I wanted month, day, year. So I looked it up, and Halliburton's birthday, funny enough, is on leap day. So it's 229, and he was born in 2000. So it's 22900. It's a really weird one. And I just pulled up the marketplace and looked at his listing, and sure enough, it was sitting right there. So I snatched it up.
I just got taken to school. I never really thought about it. I've just been thinking about it in terms of like 4-digit year. And maybe that's a function of like the mint size only being up to 15,000 until recently. With the mint size extending to 35,000, we certainly have a lot more options. And let's say it goes to 50,000 or 100,000 down the lines, like 420.69 is going to be like a monster, or 69.420. Could you imagine?
I can't even imagine. That's like the Luca I picked up. I got the 6977 Luca. I was stoked for that one.
6977 Luca? You got that?
So it's like that's the low ask that I snagged on Saturday when the marketplace was open for a couple hours.
That.
Yeah. But yeah, getting back to it. So this is sort of our 98 candidates that we should ever even consider buying. And then what you can think about is let's just pick. Let's say, I'm trying to find a good one. Can you see my mouse, by the way? Is that a yes or no? Can you see it?
Where is it right now?
Maybe it's down between, it's like 625. Okay.
Do you have control click setup?
No.
If you're on a, never mind, forget it.
I'm on a Mac.
We'll set it up later.
Yeah, we'll set it up. But yeah, so then the second sort of approach is, it doesn't make any sense to pay more for a worse serial than you could have gotten at a cheaper price. So what I mean by that is, if we look at this one down here it's around like 625 and it's serial about 1,000. If I consider that one, I don't want to spend 635 and get serial 1,800 or 640 and get 1,700. Like, it doesn't make any sense to spend any more for a serial that you could have got for a cheaper price. So that's what I did here. And these are all the blue ones where you can sort of work your way across and ask yourself, for this other best candidate for that price, am I getting a better serial than I could have for a cheaper amount? And you're sort of left with these. And remarkably, that's 14, right? So I capped this at 700. I said, willing to spend 700 on a Curry. And that's 1% of the original listings are like candidates that you could make any argument why you should buy. And it's pretty mind-blowing to see that you can go from this like just sea of listings and it's overwhelming to a decision that like I could look at it on paper and make a good decision about it. And I think what's changed a lot is with the new restrictions in the marketplace, we'll see where those go. But having a 90-minute timer or a 30-minute timer, you do have to be a bit more strategic, right? You can't just kind of shotgun approach and buy a bunch of things. You really have to make your buys count. And using a strategy like this is even, I think, more powerful in times like this, where you have to make your buys count. And then you have a little bit more ability to buy them, right? With everyone else being timed out, there's less people that are probably sniping the same moment you're going for. So I think it's a really interesting time with what they've done with the timeouts.
Okay. So I have a question for you now. So you've narrowed this down to 14 listings. Which one are you buying?
So I think it depends, right? If I'm buying this just to complete the challenge, it's a little bit different because it's a player like Curry, where I think his moments are going to hold some value. I think there's a couple like entry points you could consider, right? You still have this cheapest one here, where it's the cheapest price. You're getting the best serial you can for your dollar. I probably wouldn't really mess around with any of these other ones here. I think wherever you see these elbows are like big drops followed by not much more gain after that. So if I wanted to spend an extra $15 to get sub 4,000, that could be a decent buy. I wouldn't consider this one, right? You're not really gaining much. Or I'd start looking down here, where maybe I spend 75 extra dollars and now I'm still in the 4 digits, but I'm in the 1,000s range. And probably the fourth option would be wherever I can get that cracks the 3-digit lower. So that's probably like this 600 or 650, one of those.
Yeah. So instead, I've been watching the chat as well, and like I want to make it clear, and I don't, and maybe Taylor, I'm wrong, but like you're not like pulling all of this data and then doing these massive graphs and then like analyzing an individual decision with painstaking specificity to then pull the trigger on a low serial, right? Like no. What you're trying to articulate here is, conceptually speaking, here are the high level philosophical approaches that you need to take, so that when you're doing the actual scouring within the listings, when you're sorting by lowest ask, you can sort of take these things into account, right?
Exactly.
At the particular price bands. So,
yeah.
You know, once you get down a band, like, okay, where does that hit? So I think for everybody else, in Cedric and everybody else that's in the chat thinking to themselves, like, I can never get this. Like, I can't do this, but that's not the point. The point is that you can think about this as you're going through those listings and sort of articulate that, or you don't have to have this all broken out in order to kind of apply those philosophies.
I think it's mainly here to show that with a couple simple rules, you can know in your head that there's only a handful of good buys potentially that you should even consider. And it's just sort of something to keep in mind as you are going down the list, right? It would be great if you could do some sort of other filtering on the list, but you can't. So it's just something that I keep in mind, right? Like I'm scrolling down the price, keeping in mind like what the best serial is roughly that my money could have got me. And I scroll down and quickly take a look and can make a decision there. And you have a little bit more time now with these like 30-minute timeouts, right? So it's making it a little bit easier.
So I really appreciate all this. We're going to bring in another guest of the program, another friend of the program, one of the First Mint. I don't know, I don't want to use like negative terms or anything like that, but like one of the movers and shakers in here to kind of get his opinions. He was watching all of the breakdown that you just had. Before we do that though, we've got 563 people in here. We can't gift moments right now, but if you could go ahead and smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, I'd really appreciate that. That helps us boost our capability to reach more people with this content. So if you go ahead and do that, and then I'll send out the form here, or maybe Phil D, if you're in the chat as well. If someone can send out the form for that super secret handle contest or game that we're going to be playing here with everybody's, that would be great. So smash that like button. And while you're doing that, I'm going to bring in Greg Murray, who you may have seen in the last few days and weeks. He sort of took over in a way better format and a way quicker analysis than I was doing, sort of some of the challenge analysis and challenge completion numbers. You've seen him out there. We retweet him a lot. So Greg, I want to get your thoughts. Like after having listened to Taylor explain sort of the buy side of this, what are your takeaways from this?
First of all, Taylor, that's great stuff. Love it. And I feel like it's something that I was trying to do as I started to buy moments, was trying to put those rules around it. Like what shouldn't I buy? And I feel like those charts you put together articulated it perfectly. So Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I like to do when I'm buying things. I usually do it on my phone, and I'll just get that wheel going and scroll down and look for things that don't look right? Because you see, like, most things are priced kind of nested together, and every once in a while you'll see that, I don't know, if you're looking at like an $80 range, you'll see like a $40 moment in there. And that's kind of what I look for. So I think that's perfect. I'm glad we're kind of showing that to everybody.
Agreed.
Yeah, they definitely
100%.
stick out like a sore thumb. It's one of those things where you sort of in your mind know, like, all right, I'm sort of in $80 territory, and you keep scrolling. You're like, oh, $60. What are you doing here? And it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb.
I think that's like maybe the best part and perhaps the most like exhilarating feeling about, other than crack packing. Hold on.
Cracking?
Cracking packs. Dude, I don't know what that was. That was a weekend of not having the marketplace and now thinking about the marketplace constantly for 24 hours. But like I always one of the philosophical things why I think TopShot is so sticky for people that have had positive experiences within the platform, and why some of those folks that haven't had those experiences yet are maybe less optimistic or bullish about this is this concept called the peak end effect, right? Psychological concept that we are more predisposed to have a higher opinion of things based on what our peak moment within that is or our lowest moment within that is. Classic example, if you go to Disneyland and every half hour you had to assess your happiness on a scale of 0 to 10, like maybe riding Splash Mountain is a 10, but like the long lines and the expensive food and like the hotness, you might be at like a 5 or a 6 most of the day. But when you're reflecting back on your experience at Disneyland, you're not thinking about like, oh, I averaged like a 5.6, right? Like you're thinking about the peak moments that you had. And I think that they do a really good job of building those peak moments in like the pack opening experience and some of that, as well as some of the other kind of cool things that you see. And one of those things, like being able to snipe something on the marketplace or like have a strategy work out for you or complete a challenge, those types of things are exceptionally high peaks. And so when you're able to attain those things, it gives you a better opinion of the platform in general. I think all of us will probably agree that like we are a long way from utopia here, and there have been some serious problems in the last few weeks, and it's been incredibly grinding and difficult and stressful. But I remain bullish in a lot of ways because like some of these things that we're able to do, like having those individual moments, even if the stressors are out there, like man, I felt like that was a good deal. I felt like I found something good, or I found a gem, or I saw something that someone else didn't, is incredibly like helpful, and like you get the dopamine hit from it. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it. So with that said, now let's talk about selling, right? So we talked about buying, right? As a buyer, as someone who's looking at these listings and trying to figure out which of these things might I buy, should I buy, and so forth. There's lots of ways to do that within the context of NBA TopShot or utilizing other sites. But let's say that I'm someone who came into this, or let's say I'm newer to the platform and I got a Rising Stars or Seeing Stars pack. Let's say it's my pack, right, that I actually cracked, and I'll share my screen and we can go from there. But like, what do I do, and how do I figure out where to price these things? So Greg and Taylor, I want to go through like, let's figure out and let's go through the exercise of, if I was to sell, and I'm not going to, but if I was to sell the 3 moments that I got in my Seeing Stars pack, like let's talk through the tools that you guys might use and the strategies that you might think about where you would price it, and what are some of the options you have as a seller playing this game. It is a game. I want to make that abundantly clear. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and talk through that. And we will go from there. And hopefully you guys can help me figure out, I'm not going to actually list anything, but we'll go through the exercise of like what that would actually look like if we wanted to. So we'll go ahead and take a look at these moments that I've got. This one's showing up right here as the most recent one, this PJ Washington, because I just delisted it. I'm going to relist it here in a little bit. We can talk about that if we get to it. I got this Luka Doncic. That was my first purchase on the marketplace last night for $625. It's probably below that now. We'll talk about that later. But these 3, this Domantas Sabonis, this Tyrese Halliburton, this is what I was talking about, Taylor. If you just click control in Windows, have it set up, you can actually drive zoom. And then this Clint Capela. These were the 3 moments that I got in my Seeing Stars pack that I got on the 3rd drop at some point. So let's start with the Capela. So if I was to get a Clint Capela, like I guess first reaction to Clint Capela looking at this. Let's say you cracked it in a pack. What would your first thought be? Not just in terms of like where I could sell it, but like what would your first reaction to getting an 1149 of 35,000 plus CC Clint Capela?
I'd be pretty happy with that. I haven't had a ton of luck getting things below 1K as far as serial number. So I would think you could probably fetch a little bit of a premium for something around 1,000.
Okay. So how would we figure that out? How would you figure that out?
I would check the current listings for that one.
Okay.
Open it up, head to the current listings, look at the lowest ask first, just to get kind of a baseline, and then kind of head to that 1,000 or around that 1,000 serial area to figure out what else has been priced in that range.
It's a pretty good alley-oop. So just to orient everyone to what I did, I hopped in, I just clicked off of my marketplace page, and I know that this is like old news to some of you, but there are people in here that haven't had this and may not be able to navigate the site. So wanted to clarify that. So when you're in the specific moment that you own, and I think about these as like, there's a parent and then there's a child, right? The parent is the moment more broadly. The child is my specific version of that particular moment. So in this case, the serial number 1149. So my child moment, if you then click this button here where it says 589 available for sale, you actually jump back towards the parent, right? Here is the listings more broadly for this that exist, that have all of the children that are listed and have a price on the marketplace. So right now, this one is $9 on the marketplace. So one of the lower ones. There are, if I'm not mistaken, in the base set, and for anybody that doesn't know, this is a tool called addmorefunds.com that has all of the base, or excuse me, all of the marketplace dynamics. This is currently sorted by lowest ask, but so there's only like 20 or so moments under $9 or under $10, and that happens to be one of them within there. These refresh every once in a while though. So with that $9 moment, so you're saying look at and explore all listings here to get a sense for where those things fall, right?
Exactly, yeah. So I would want to see what other serial numbers are priced at kind of in that area that yours is.
Okay, so right now it's sorted by serial number. So I could either scroll all the way down using this. I've got the Logitech MX2 mouse, highly recommended if anybody does a lot of Excel work. The free scroll wheel is fantastic. It's last year's version because the MX3 is $99. This is like $79. Pro tip on that one. So if you're looking in that range, it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, looking at this, anything over 1,000 but under like 1,200, I would consider that sort of right in that range. So you're looking at maybe 35, looks like low of 25 here in the 1070 range. And then once you start getting up above here, it sort of gets less and less relevant. But it looks like 5 or 6 listings in that 10 or 1,000 to 1,100 range, anywhere from $25 to $99 or somewhere in there. But for the most part, sort of between $25 and $40. So if I was to sell, like if I was to look at this specifically and only from the perspective of how would my listing stick out from everything around there, how would you think through that, Taylor?
Yeah, I think you'd have to go under 25 here, I think, would be my guess, right? You're kind of blocked by that 1071 that's got a better serial than you, and at 25, if that wasn't there, I think you could probably get away with pricing it a bit higher and like competing with that $30 one, and you could probably price it at like, I don't know, $27, $28, where someone feels like they're saving a couple bucks, still getting a good serial. But that 25 at 1070 is kind of stuck in your way, right? Like someone who's looking to spend a little bit more and say you priced yours at 25 as well, chances are I think theirs is going to go first. And knowing that a moment like this, people are probably a little bit hesitant to reach deeper in their pockets for a better serial. There may not be many buyers that are, going to be shopping that area to even buy the 1071 to kind of bring yours out from on deck and up to bat, right? So I'd probably say if you really wanted to sell it, probably somewhere in like the low 20 range, you might be able to get someone. Would be what I would go with.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I just pulled a comment from Matthew here. More importantly, determining how fast you want it to move. That is absolutely a huge component here, right? Because if we need to sell this, right? And we want it to move fast. Like the strategy should be, how do I undercut and put this in a position where it sticks out relative to those things that are around it? So that if you're applying, in theory, logical and rational market strategy, that that someone would pick up on that thing. Right. If I wanted to sell this right away, I would probably price it at $19 because that 1.9 sticks out significantly relative to those things around it, the 2s and 3s and 4s. And as someone who scrolls really, really fast, and I know everybody else does as well, like visual delineation matters a whole hell of a lot in terms of like what catches your eye in the marketplace. So keep that in mind. And that applies not just on these massive moments, but on bigger moments as well, right? Like if you're looking at something that's 23.99 or 99, like just pricing your moment at 23.98, like very difficult to pull that out. But if you price it at 22.99 or 23.50 or even like significant chunks down, that's going to call that out, especially if it's like a less liquid moment. So like a rare, for example, maybe the season 1, you've got an MGLE or something like that, there's only 500 of them. 10% of them might be listed. You're only looking at 50 listings. How does yours stick out of those 50 listings relative to everything else that's out there? So I think I like that. So if I was going to price this one out, I'd probably sell it for 19. I'm going to keep Capela because he might be included in the a base hit challenge moving forward. Like I'm not in any hurry to make $12 on it or whatever. I'm just going to hold this one just to make sure that I don't get Will Bartoned, as I like to call it, and get smoked on that.
I got Will Bartoned, so I know your pain.
So I'm going to bring in one more guy who's a near and dear friend that everybody loves, everybody knows, and we're going to go through the next two together, and all four of us talk through it. It's my guy, and I'm sorry, Greg, that I didn't do the video for you, but I'm going to do it for him of the intro because it's the first time we've seen him in person. Same with you. So this is going to be a combo. Applause. It's our guy, Chugs and Bugs. Hello. Hello, good friends. How are we? Now that I've removed this, you can actually see his face. It's awesome to see you guys. It makes me, it warms my heart to have everybody that I talk to on a regular basis, or not everybody, but many of the people that I talk to on a regular basis on Twitter strategizing about this stuff. So Chugs, you've been watching. Disagree with anything that we've talked through so far with Clint Capela or anything beyond that? Can't hear you, buddy. You're muted.
Yeah, it must have auto muted me. You hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I think with the buying, the discipline there is, I mean, it's spot on with what I've kind of put out in terms of mapping serial curves and stuff like that. And then with selling, I think it's basically the same thing. The only difference, I guess, for me is I also like to look at the sales curve as well. So obviously you're looking at offers. That's what 99% of the people who are looking to buy something, they're going to be just looking strictly at offers. They're not really going to be looking at where something actually sold, and they're just going to kind of gravitate towards what sticks out among offers. So basically what I'm getting at is when somebody's looking through there, they're already kind of making up their mind, like they're going to buy this. They're not necessarily debating, is it overpriced in general or not? Should I be comping it to actual sales? But I think that it is a wise thing to sort of look at where sales occurred as well, like what you've got up now with Add More Funds. I mean, it's a good little resource where you can see a sales history and you can know, like, what if the lowest offer is $25, but it hasn't sold over $20 in 3 days? Like maybe $25 just flat out isn't the right level, even if it's the cheapest level. So that's the only wrinkle I guess I would add. Nice little anecdote. On a bigger level, I had somebody DM me. They had pulled it was maybe a friend of theirs. They had pulled the #1 of the Devin Booker Seeing Stars, I believe. And they were like, it was almost like, dog catches a car. You don't know what to do with it. You have no idea. You have no idea where to list it. You're like, do I throw this thing up for 30 grand or like, what do I do? And so I pulled up the sales by serial data that I had put out. It's on my Twitter feed. I've pinned it before. I might need to pin it again because honestly, I think it's a really good just like baseline reference of just where commons, rares, and legendaries, you can kind of expect them to price It's all using sales data, and I'm looking at it now. Like a common number one on average sells for just under 10 grand, and a rare number one sells for, it looks like on the chart, maybe like 17.5, something like that. And so told the guy, I said, look, 10 grand is probably your floor because Devin Booker's an above average player. It's a number one. It's a season star or a seeing star. You know, putting it at like 20 though would look kind of silly because rares are on average not selling over 20. Now, obviously there's exceptions player to player, but just keeping that in mind as your goalposts. I basically said around 15 sounds like a reasonable level. Well, like less than a day and a half later, I get a DM back, got done at 15. And like, yeah, could he have gotten 16? Like maybe, but 15 was clearly a level that somebody else was willing to pay. And that's not something that somebody makes that decision overnight to just like buy something for 15. So 15 grand. So I think it's important just you look at the offers and you try to differentiate yourself among those offers, just like what Taylor and Greg were saying, but also recognize where sales have actually been as well, because that's a huge component of where somebody's actually going to pull the trigger on something. I mean, with everything in markets, there's a bid, you know, what somebody's willing to pay for, and there's an ask, what somebody's willing to sell for. And the answer is always somewhere in the middle. And so, you know, it's that's the cat and mouse game in terms of figuring out what to sell or where to sell it, rather.
Is this the chart that I'm showing? This is the one you're referring to, right?
That's exactly the one I pulled up, and you can see like commons are just under 10, rares are, you know, call it 17. And so basically I told him, I said, look, if you put it at 20, you'd kind of look silly probably. You know, maybe there's a Devin Booker fan out there who's you know, who'd be jazzed up to pay that. But you know, if you're just looking at actual sales data, which with this, it's like over 500,000 transactions from Eval.Market, helped me big time on that. And it's only a week's worth of sales, but you know, 500,000 transactions, I'd say that's a pretty decent sample size that you can kind of run with. And you know, maybe it's something that needs, you look at, you know, every quarter or every month, who knows, but it ended up working for that guy. I mean, he bought a Seeing Stars pack, and freaking 15 grand later, he's doing all right, I'm sure.
So I think you're talking about the serial curve as well. What I'm going to do is pull open and add more funds. Who's actually in the chat right now? I think I just pulled something out. She said, "Oh man, these charts not good enough. You need to get back to the lab." I'm going to sort of go into this and remove all of the serial buckets for the higher ones. And again, this is Capela, the one that I was looking at, and sort of serial trend over the last 5 days or so for this 35,000. It came out for the first time in the Seeing Stars pack, or was it in the, I think it was in the Seeing Stars pack, the first iteration of that on Thursday, which was like 5:42 p.m. So the first ones hit the market here. You'll see actually as compared to like the serial ranges much later that were coming out. So most of the serial numbers that came out earlier, they tend to like be more stacked relative to one another. The market sort of dictates that. But I think one of the things that when you look at and filter out and only filter on the top 10%, which is how these buckets work, serial numbers, like top 10%, there's a ton of variation in sales, much less tight or, you know, much looser fit to a curve, for example, because there's so much inefficiency there. So looking at, you know, serials that have sold for Clint Capela less than 3,500, right? They're sort of all over the place, like down from $8 here to, you know, upwards of, you know, 20-ish bucks. But as you can see, and this is removing outliers so that the graph doesn't get too wonky, because once you add the outliers back in, you'll start to see like this is probably 784. What is that? That's an asset transfer. If you're wondering what's happening, it's either money laundering or asset transfer. So someone wanted to trade the Luka Doncic that they got in a Seeing Stars pack, but they didn't want to list it at $620. So they listed their Clint Capela 784 at $620. Someone purchased that, and then the plan is to then gift that Luka Doncic or something like that. It's a very common thing until they can get to the place where we can trade Dapper funds in direct sales as opposed to listing on the marketplace. This happens a lot. So it's usually not untowards. As far as I've seen, and obviously like I'm not a part of money laundering, so I don't know if it actually is, but like that's what's happening here. But like Add More Funds is smart enough to remove some of that.
It's the metal briefcase. It's
right.
the metal briefcase at TopShot. They just set
right.
it down.
And it just refreshed on me because I was like, hey, you've been looking at this too long. So hey, Add More Funds, guys. Maybe like clear the refresh when we're doing that, but I'm just kidding. But that's a good way of looking at it. And then you can look at it this in Add More Funds. In order to see these charts, you have to have a paid subscription. They have lots of alerting functionality as well. If you're looking for a free version, Evaluate.Market does have it as well. So I'll go ahead and jump into that tool to show you for everybody else that maybe doesn't have Add More Funds, how we would do this. We would look at that base set Series 2 dunk, which I think is the later one as well. You can see how many are out there. There's only 20% still in the wild. Again, similar stack. But if you zoom in on these and just show the trends over this time period, they have now introduced the serial stacks as well for bucketing. So you see all of these, the yellow ones in their case or the blue ones, and you can remove them in a similar way. So if we're just looking at that 0 to 3,500, again, like low ask, someone snagged a decent one. This is in the 3,000 range, so like maybe not. But roughly speaking, like what I see is sort of bands around the $20 range, and some good snags sort of in this bucket. So if we listed at 19 and snagged it there, I think that would be a really good get. So that was another example. We'll talk about the Sabonis here in a second because the listing with utility and sort of the activity relative to utility is a little bit different, and we need to be thoughtful about timing. So I want to talk about that concept as well. But before we do that, what questions do folks have? Like, let's go to the chat. We've talked through a couple high-level concepts at the buying level, at the listing level for a couple examples, or at least one example with Clint Capela. But what are folks curious about in terms of listing? Maybe not a specific, or if you've got a specific example, maybe we can talk through something like that. But what do people want to know from the folks that live and breathe this day in and day out like we all do? And as those things come in, jersey numbers. Okay, so that's good idea, good thought process. Jersey numbers. Chugs, when you were doing some of the analysis on serial number curves, where did jersey numbers fall relative to serial number 1?
So it's funny. I was not really able to get that deep in the weeds on jersey number. I more or less kind of take a simplistic approach on it and just treat a jersey number like a number 1, frankly. Yeah. Maybe if that's a hill that I end up dying on down the road and jersey number becomes more valuable, like it's totally possible. I'd concede that, but at this point, I'm just looking at jersey number as a 1. And I saw a comment about the Booker with the 1 also being a jersey match, and Zion, same thing. Yeah. A couple other players. Maybe this is just personal preference. I don't necessarily think that means it should be like double the value or like 75% higher or something like that because it's a jersey and a 1. Yeah. I think it should just be, a 1 or a jersey. You could almost say are a wash in terms of value. Like they should kind of stand as 1A and 1B. And then you kind of go from there. I mean, that's really it. I honestly, when I looked at the sales data that I had, I didn't cross check for jersey number or like screen out jersey number. Obviously I can go back and kind of do that. And that would probably reveal, in my opinion, that jersey match is pretty much in line with a number 1. I could go back and check and confirm, but that's what my guess would be.
What's your opinion on perfect scores then? Same thing.
I think perfect scores is an anomaly in terms of listing price, but I don't know if it's a thing for sales price. Like I don't think, and what's weird, call me crazy, but I only think that 99 out of 99 or 999 out of 99, or if there was a 9,999, I think only those would be particularly, attractive. I guess it's my old like arcade routes where like this highest score was 999s across the board, and like it couldn't go any higher because you couldn't add a digit. And so that would be, to me, the only perfect score that would really matter. I guess, 100 out of 100 is cool or whatever, but
out of 12,000
yeah, 12,000 out of 12,000 is not really doing much for me. I mean, unless there's like some video game out there that was really popular where like hit points maxed out at 12,000 and that's like a thing, like, okay, those people can have that. But the perfect score thing hasn't really materialized. And there's a lot of numbers though that probably will matter in the long run, like the long run, that aren't really showing up at all in the market. Like I'm my big thing is the area codes. Like I swear up and down that area codes are going to be a thing eventually. I mean, they're not clearly right now, but like to me, like a John Morant 901, like that's going to be a big deal, or a Zion 504 for New Orleans, like that's a big deal, or 212 for New York. Like I think those will matter. I just don't think the market is really showing that yet. And the funny thing is, like, if you happen to find somebody who lists like not really knowing what they're listing, I think it's a wise move to snag it up, almost like what Taylor did with the birthday thing. Like people are listing it without really realizing that. And so I think those are kind of that unique, like I would probably pay an extra like 15-20% to snag that, because you just never know. Like that's a 15 to 20% premium, which could later be like a 300% premium, 5 years from now, who knows? So there's some numerology that I buy into, but a lot of it I don't really buy into yet.
Yeah, I'm sort of with you there. And I think if you can, for everybody out there, like if you can buy low on some of those and make those bets without a ton of like cost basis in, lot better feeling than like paying a lot for it now with the expectation that a lot now means a lot more later. So I think that's sort of how I'm approaching it. I think the market has decided that serial numbers matter. The market, I think the anomalous stuff, like Greg, it was maybe you that was doing the analysis, or maybe it was Chugs, about like what's the most common sale number or something like that. Like the serial number is like 69 or 420, which like that gets traded the most, which is just kind of funny in the grand scheme of things. But people are drawn to those types of things. Yeah. So I'm curious, switching gears a little bit, and I think I've gotten it, and I don't know if Jugs and Greg and Taylor, if you've gotten these DMs as well. Like, I think a lot of people have a lot of anxiety around the new challenges that are coming out and what has happened with the market relative to the AD challenge after Cool Cats 2, as well as the gift challenge after Derrick Rose and all of the gift moments, like with the precipitous drop in value of all of the challenge moments. And then, maybe the reward not living up to the expectations that they might have had for it, whether or not they did, how much analysis they had done as to like what they expected it to be. I actually talked about this in my stream like 2 weeks ago about AD, like there are going to be sales at 2,000, but it's very likely to end up in similar /7,500 common area moments. And I think people are sort of wrapping their heads around what that means, especially with multiple challenges happening at the same time with some relatively nice rewards at the end of them. We look at now, we've got, just for everybody that may not know this, or just to reiterate to everyone, right now there is an active challenge for these Seeing Stars moments for Team KD, that the 12 players on that team, you collect all of them and you will get KD in 3 weeks at this point. So if there's only 10,000 of each of those Seeing Stars, there can only be possible, if 10,000 people got all 12 moments, only 10,000 of them. What we've seen time and time again is that completion percentage for challenges across the board, other than legendary hollows, is pretty typically between 50 and 70% completion, with a couple outliers above 70%. Typically, the better the player that the challenge reward is, the closer or higher the completion percentage goes. The worse or like less popular the player is, the lower the completion percentage goes. It makes sense, right? Fewer people are interested in the end goal. But with both KD and LeBron on the second end of that challenge, I think, I'm curious what and when, and what are your thoughts about challenge rewards there, without giving away too much as to your own strategy. Like, what do you see with this? Are we going to see the same like massive spike in prices on these things, or do you think the market may have a little hesitance to shoot those prices up, given how much people got burned on them before?
Who wants to go first?
I was just going to say, I think it might take a little bit to ramp up, given that these are 3 weeks long and people's attention may be elsewhere. But I think we still see the KD challenge up in that like kind of 7,000 completion range, just given what we've seen in the past and given the quality of player that KD is. And I think kind of when you think about that, you have to kind of weigh between what you think or what the value of that moment is going to be once you get it. I mean, it's kind of a lottery ticket. So there is a chance, that you pull a really, really good serial on that KD. But there's also a chance that you pull like a 7,000 on that KD. So the balance for me is as you start to see prices rising, kind of estimating what you think that KD is going to be worth. And then if the value of those moments goes above that and you're able to, whatever you paid for them, the difference between what you paid and what you're willing to sell them for, you kind of have to put that mental math together and say, hey, I'm going to get rid of these now because I know I'm going to get more on it now than I will on KD after the fact, given that these moments are going to tank afterwards.
Yeah. So, and I saw a couple of things in the chat. Like some people think KD is going to be required for LeBron. To be clear, they have not said one way or another what is going to be required for LeBron. I think there's a couple camps of people that believe different things or have different theories as to what it is. Taylor, I'm curious, what are your thoughts? Is it just going to be, if you've paid attention to or are paying attention and following Seeing Stars, do you think that the LeBron challenge after the fact will just be of his teammates, or will they also have either KD or AD, I think is the other one that people are curious about?
Right. I mean, it's pure speculation. I'm in the camp of where I think they're just going to run right after this challenge, they're going to run one for LeBron where you collect his team. That's where my gut is. But my gut's been wrong a lot, right? Like yeah. TopShot's pulled tricks on us for a while, right? Like they pulled out the Master Challenge and everyone was selling things off and all of a sudden you have to do a 180 and start buying. So that's where my gut is, but I'm fully prepared, to be bamboozled here. Is sort of where I'm at. And I think the other part that's interesting with it is you don't have the cases like some of these other challenges where you have commons that are required for these of players that are not really desirable, right? Like other challenges where you have to get your Bismack Biombo and you have to pay a premium for it. And you're signing up to probably lose a lot of money on that moment if you're buying it towards the peak. But I think it's a little bit more interesting with this challenge as the players required are all all-stars, right? They vary in interest. People may not like Vucevic or Sabonis as much as some of the other guys, but
slander.
You get this Vucevic slander out of here.
Bite your
but
tongue.
You still have really solid players that you've collected. So I think it'll be interesting to really see how that changes, and if we see as big of a precipitous drop right after the challenge, or if people are going to be a little bit stronger and be like, maybe I do want to hold on to my Paul George and my whatever other moments you have. I've also thought it was funny that Team LeBron is like a considerably more expensive team on TopShot. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I think, and I'll share this right now. I think one of the other First Mint family guys, Steef, who's not on the stream tonight, he will be on a future stream for sure, runs Rookshot.com, or excuse me, .market, Rookshot.Market. And I think he just put out the graph on the cost of, or like the updated cost of the Seeing Stars floor. So I'm going to pull that up really quickly so everybody can see this. This is kind of what Taylor's articulating, that the cost of Team LeBron right now, right, or as of yesterday, and I don't know, can I make this bigger? There we go. Is 20% higher or so relative to Team KD. I think that has nothing to do with anything other than KD sucks at drafting, because like you took Luka and Steph and they smoked them. Like it was pretty considerable. So like the starters there make up the big difference, I think. And like the reserves are, I mean, if you just look at Team Durant starters versus the reserves, that's the funny storyline to me, is that like the reserves on Team Durant are way higher. And I think that's part of that is some of the people that are the teams that are involved. But if we're looking at that set name for Seeing Stars as well, like you got a big range of this. And you've got on the low end right now, Rudy Gobert, who's I'm hoping that he gets on the first mint at some point so that Luke and Phil D can speak French to him. I don't know if anybody else saw that, where they went on a radio station or a TV station from Quebec and spoke French. It was the funniest thing that I've seen in a long time. The Franglish was very impressive. But when you get down towards, the Seeing Stars moments here that are in the higher end, you're looking at Luka with that 650, Steph with 500, and then the only other, really big name that's not on Team LeBron was Zion. So in general, I think the question though is like, in terms of timing, what we expect to see, and going back to this, the Rookshot charts, we can sort of look at the high peak for the 80 challenge to sort of maybe extrapolate out what that might look like for these challenges. I think generally speaking, there is, and I don't know how the 3-week timetable will affect this, but generally speaking, there is a massive uptick in price when the challenge rewards are announced. The fact that the marketplace was down when these things happen for the most part and has been essentially ratcheted into and sort of like a governor put on, I think we are not seeing the massive spikes in Seeing Stars prices that I would have expected based on previous behavior, both with this challenge, the gift challenge, CC1 with Luka as well. And for everybody else, this is Cool Cats 2. So the AD was the challenge reward here. So all of the 10 moments that you needed, the purple bands down here are all the actual Cool Cats themselves. And then the blue bands are the base moments that Taylor was mentioning. Like they all spiked in value really, really quickly. And this is that point where Will Barton was trading at like $289, right? It was out of 12,000 mint. So if Will Barton was trading out of 12,000 mint, random guy, non-all-star to get an AD challenge award, like what should Domantas Sabonis be, right? Like that. And this, I think, is also really important to recognize that this happened on the massive hype cycle day or just after it. So there was a massive influx of users, like 4x. There were a lot of people buying moments. This was essentially the only focus. Like there was an MGLE challenge, I think, and the Trae Young Hollow was going at the same time. But like for the most part, this was sort of the focus. And I think it rose really quickly on the back of that and then sort of tapered off. But what you can expect is like a spike. It's going to go up, but actually approaching the challenge, we typically see sort of price leveling as people start to undercut and try and make back their money. So if you're thinking to yourself, should I hold my insert name of Seeing Star here that's required for the KD challenge? How long should I hold it for? I think timing that is going to be tough, but my assumption will be that once the marketplace gets back to full strength and it's not like it doesn't have this tampering down, we will see an increase in Seeing Stars prices. Something to note as well, BTC and ETH are both up today and yesterday. We typically see a tailing effect of that as well, which is part of the reason why I think this was such a massive spike in that February 21, 22, 23 range is because of that was like when Bitcoin went to like 60 and ETH went above 2000. So keep that in mind as well. There are some macro market level moves in the crypto space that affect how and like the liquidity of crypto traders that are participating in these markets as well. That was me talking for like 4 minutes about this. What are your thoughts, Taylor, about everything that I just laid out? Are you doing the Seeing Stars challenge? Do you have any recommendations or advice for anybody that's considering it?
Yeah. So I'm going after the LeBron one, and I'm hoping that I don't have to collect the entire other team. That's sort of the angle I'm going with, because I don't really have the pockets to fork over all that for LeBron. So I'm going for the LeBron. I've gone about picking up my moments, sort of working my way down from the top, right? So I've started with the most expensive ones, and I've been as patient as possible, or I'm just sitting there looking for a deal to try to save some money and take a look at the general trend to make sure it's in the right place. Which could be, even if it's saving $50 on a Luka, that's $50 that could cover some losses on another player that may depreciate a little bit more after the challenge is over. So I've sort of been patient and worked my way down from the most expensive down to the least expensive, just because should things, the market pick up and things grow, say 25% or something, I'm less concerned about paying for one of the cheaper ones, like a Sabonis, than I am for not grabbing Luka when it was sort of in my price range. So that's sort of the strategy I've been taking, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen to these prices when they announce the LeBron challenge, because for folks that are really into TopShot on Discord, following things on Twitter, it's pretty evident that like there's going to be a LeBron challenge. It's just a matter of what's it going to take. But you have to imagine there's thousands of people that have no clue that there's going to be a LeBron challenge, right? And I think once it's formally announced, you can expect some shift in the market, I would assume. I don't think we can assume everyone knows that they're holding cards that are going to be part of a challenge.
And I think that's part of the reason why we're going to do this every Tuesday, and why Chugs and Greg and Taylor and I are all like putting this stuff out there, is to like help educate and like help to people figure this out. I can't tell you how many comments and DMs that I get like, hey, don't give away the secret. Like, and I think that like, yes, there is a self like, not fulfilling is the wrong word, but like, there's some, hey, I want to keep this to myself and not share it for free type of dynamic. I don't think we're there yet. And I don't think that our messages get to enough people that we really do like crazily affect things yet. There are some things that spike, but I think sharing strategy and how we think about this can be helpful. I'm not saying that any one of us is the smartest investor or the smartest player of this game or the smartest flipper. Like, there are way smarter people out there. And one of the things I keep saying is like, if you're the smartest person in the room, like find a new room, because you're not getting smarter.
Leaving now.
No, I really appreciate that. And I hope that that's sort of like the first mint. That's what we're about, is like not worrying that we're sharing information that people can act on. Like, that's the point, is that we want to build this community that's smart and acting and feeling good about this, right? Because we want people to stay in this space, not just for TopShot, but everything else down the line. Like, we feel comfortable in like navigating this like very gray area within the guardrails, and it's uncharted water. So we want to make sure people are having a good time with that. So that's why we're doing it. If you're sitting out there like crapping on us because you're like, don't give away the super secret sauce, like, sorry, bro, like find a new angle and get smarter, because like we're sharing it.
we can't hide it anyway. I mean, it's all out there.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to know what I'm doing, you can go look me up and you can see what I'm buying. I mean, it's pretty obvious that I'm going for the LeBron challenge. If you can go see what I've bought in the last 24 hours or 36 hours or whatever. I mean, that's the kind of the beauty of this whole thing, right? It's as transparent as it gets. This isn't like people talking about, talking stock picks or something, and you don't know if they really are, putting their money where their mouth is or whatever. This is as transparent as it gets. I'll just say on Seeing Stars, like I think it's a no-brainer. Like, just full stop. I think it's a no-brainer at the levels that they're at right now. LeBron is the Ferrari of TopShot, and it doesn't matter which Ferrari you have. It's a Ferrari, So if you have a chance to get a LeBron, you go for it. And with the other challenges, like we've mentioned, you can be stuck with a bag of 5 to hell. If the cool cats, there's 10 moments, 5 are cool cats, but like some of the cool cats aren't even necessarily like studs or anything. Whereas it's Seeing Stars. You got 12. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like, I'm not complaining if I'm left with like a Jokic, a Luka, a Steph, and I'm looking at the list: Paul George, Jaylen Brown, Chris Paul. Like, those, I can think of way worse that you're stuck with on the other side. So if that LeBron doesn't like pop the way you were thinking it was going to, and I mean, there's also the thought, if you're thinking really big picture, like, it's the first All-Star set ever made, so that's one thing. If you have the whole set, what if they allow the ability to sell sets, like a bundle, basically? Like, the sum is greater than the parts is kind of what I'm getting at here.
And you.
Sorry, no, go for it, Taylor. That's sort of my 2 cents on it. Like, I could not be more pro go for for me, the LeBron, but honestly, the KD one's probably pretty compelling too, for the same reasons.
And if you're looking at like the significance of this season, right? If you go after the LeBron one, you're going to pick up a LeBron, you're going to pick up Curry, Giannis, and Luka. And like, you're holding guys where the odds of you holding the
Hall of
MVP of
Famers,
this
lasting
season,
players.
like
Yeah.
you're almost guaranteeing you're going to snag an MVP of this season for their All-Star game moment. So I look at it the same way, right? Like you're not left holding some garbage at the end of the day. You're holding Hall of Fame players. I totally agree with you there.
Yeah.
So I just pulled down just to get a sense. Like I just pulled down from, again, add more funds. I just exported the view, and again, paid subscription. I don't get paid by them, so they're just good dudes, and the tool is great. Into a CSV. Took all of them right now. This is like 5 or 10 minutes delayed. 55.73. So we talked about Luka a lot and Cool Cats in general. And I don't know exactly what the Luka price is right now, but you could probably sell the Luka, the AD, and the Cat maybe, like, or the Booker or any one of them. You could probably sell 2 of them and buy the entire Seeing Stars set, assuming that the marketplace was up and you could actually buy everything at the low ask, right? That's probably going to go up a little bit once the restrictions are lifted. But that's sort of the math that we're doing right now. Is like, okay, in KD, you could definitely just sell the Luka from Cool Cat and then get the KD, like the entire team, no problem. You're giving up the LaMelo on the end of it, and then all of the sub 5,000, or excuse me, the 5,000 mint Cool Cats, which are pretty low mint in base set in the grand scheme of things. And Booker's a good get, in my opinion. But those are the types of things that you might have to make choices about. And it's okay to have to make that choice. Like, people don't have infinite funds. There is not an infinite runway where this just gets to a bajillion dollars and then everybody has dapper bucks. Like, you're going to have to make hard choices, and that's okay. And whatever makes you the most fulfilled and feels the best about, and you feel most comfortable with. But like, I'm someone that looks at this like you do, Chugs, that having the Seeing Stars set and the full set is not a bad get. And like, yes, it's going to probably come down. There is going to be a utility for these moments, for the challenges, and it is very likely that they will come down after the fact. But can you repurpose things from your current asset stack to account for that instead of putting new money in? Can you trade for moments, right? Like with friends or people that you trust once gifting is back up and allowed? Can you go in together on something if you need to? So lots of ways to approach that. Just time check. We're at like hour 20 in already. So I'd like to spend the last like 5 or 10 minutes talking about what now, right? We know, and I mentioned this at the top of this show, we know that the marketplace is going down tomorrow, again, for a long period of time. Like they said, I think Osman said something like, I don't know, 8 a.m. Pacific, and they're going to bring it back up when they can, but for most of the day, starting speculation, what are they working on? Are they just working on fixing some of the problems? Are they planning for something else? If you had to guess, what would it be?
I pray it's to fix the market for once and for all. That's it. I really don't think supply should be the priority right now, but that's just me. A lot of people think Cool Cats 3 is like a Thursday drop or something, or maybe Badges, but I think the marketplace being like fully greased is the like priority 1, 2, 3 through 7, in my opinion. They need that volume. They need that traction. Like the community needs it. They need it. There's a lot of volume that was missed the last 36 hours that, it's not lost on them, right? I mean, they're getting 5% on each buy and sell. So, I mean, pack money is good, but those buyers are always going to be there, in my opinion. So, they need to get the marketplace running, but I'd be curious what you guys think they might be cooking up, on the other side of maintenance.
I mean, they had 15 or they've had almost 15 million sales today.
Yeah, they brought it back for they barely bring it back. And there's so much pent-up demand and people like ready to go.
15 minutes, and I think WJR, who's another guy on Twitter that's a great follow and chimes in, is super active. It's like DOUBLE. Anyway, was mentioned like 2-hour wait, and you're still at 4 million in 2 hours. Like the thirst is real, and it's not just people dumping stuff, right? Like there's a 100%. Lot of snapping activity here. So I agree with you there. Lots of people in the chat are like, Cool Cats 3, is that coming? What do you think?
It's like, not yet.
So I agree, Chugs. I think it's going to be marketplace fixes. Part of me hopes that it's Badges. I know that they've said that it was probably going to be late March. That would be a nice gift to everybody to do it now, and I think that would drive a whole new hype cycle. That would definitely raise some funds for them, but also get people more active. So I don't know. I got my fingers crossed.
Taylor, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I have a feeling it's something about the marketplace, but looking at it, I don't know. I mean, they did surprise us with the like timeout, right? Getting timed out for 90 minutes. I didn't see that coming. So I'm sure they could be working on something else for the marketplace to make it smoother and something that can scale better, right? Just because it just can't really function at the volume that it needs to if everyone can just jam on the same listing. So
Yeah,
I have a feeling it's something about the marketplace. I too would hope it's an early badge present, but I've kind of seen that get pushed out a little bit here and there. So I'm not, too confident it's going to be badge related. And I'd be a little bit surprised if they explicitly took the marketplace down and gave everyone a long heads up if it was just to drop packs or announce cool cats or something like that, because the market has been so left out. We've been locked out for the entire All-Star game and people are just dying to be in the marketplace. So I'd imagine they're hesitant to put the clamps on again just to drop something like that.
Yeah. So for everybody, we've talked about badges and what does that mean? For anybody that's newer, there will be rookie badges that will be applied for a variety of different things. There's a blog post on NBA TopShot that you can find about what those badges are. I'm pretty sure it's help me with this. It's badge if it's your first game in the league. So you get a rookie badge for your first game. You get a badge for your first moment on TopShot at all. For example, Kevin Durant's first moment is a run it back from the 2013-14 because he didn't play last year. There is a moment of minted in your rookie year. So even if it wasn't your first game, Giannis in 2013-14, that was not his first game, but he got that one as well. And then there's a fourth, if I'm not mistaken. One more. What am I missing?
I think it's just three actually.
I think there's a fourth one.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah,
that's new to me.
Someone's going to correct me in the chat. I'll pop it up in there in a minute. And the question of do we think that the badges are currently baked into the price? To an extent, I think they are. I think just like everything else that we've seen, there are people that don't know about these things. And it's not, everybody that or everything that on Twitter or that you are experiencing, you can't assume that 250,000 other people that are, the filthy casuals or what, no, I'm just kidding. But the people that aren't living and breathing it and in the same Twitter spheres and echo chambers that you aren't seeing that. So it can be really a confirmation bias for people to be everybody's got to know this because everybody in your circle knows it, but there are people that are not in that circle. So they said 4 in a blog. They're wrong. It's 3. They're just 3. Cool. 3 badge. Cool. That fixes that. One thing I want to make. So I saw a lot of chatter today, and I think there's lots of people very angry and super bullish and just categorically happy and everything's going to be fine. I think I sit at a very interesting cross section between those two things. I am very bullish right now, but I also recognize that Dapper has a serious problem or a set of serious problems that they need to address. And I have confidence that they will fix them, but it's very curious how they're doing that. And the especially with the announcement of the marketplace coming back with sort of the restrictions, I think that was met with what do you mean? How does this work? And so forth. My interaction with that today is it was actually relatively peaceful. That said, it is artificially manipulating the market in a way that protects them from a technology perspective, but does not allow for things to actually take effect in a way that we would expect them to, right? There is more demand than there is supply in some of these circumstances. We would expect these things, especially for some of the Seeing Stars and so forth, to rocket forward. So I hope that they will fix this in such a way that they don't have to put the rate limiter on this thing so that the market can act more like a market. So that's sort of my take on this as well. One of the things I want to also make very clear to people, and it's not abundantly clear if you don't have any understanding of how the blockchain backend works, we're super used to swiping a credit card and immediately it going through, right? If you buy something on Amazon or anything else, because your credit card, Visa and MasterCard and all these transaction companies have built massively fast transaction markets that confirm fundage immediately. And that doesn't happen on the blockchain because you're trying to get this NFT that's sitting there on a listing, accessing it, confirming payment, delivering payment, confirming that back to you. And so it's a much slower transaction process, which has inherent challenges in it. Part of the reason, the big reason and why Flow got built, the Flow blockchain that this project is built on, why this got built was because Ethereum couldn't handle the volume of CryptoKitties, the Ethereum blockchain. So like Flow was built specifically to avoid some of these challenges with the high transaction and high volume things that literally shut down Ethereum when CryptoKitties got so popular. So they are experiencing some of the same problems, just at a different level than they were in 2017. Dapper Labs built CryptoKitties, which is a game. You can look it up. Watch the Friday show. We had Rude Moose on, who explained some of the background and history there, if you want to get a little bit more info there. So there's a lot more going on here than just like volume on the site is crashing it. Nope, it is there are very specific technical challenges with confirming and delivering non-fungible tokens to and from wallets on a blockchain in real time when 10,000 people are trying to select the same thing and purchase it. So they have a lot of challenging problems to solve. Curious to see where this goes. I'm bullish generally, but I'm not a dev and I don't know blockchain. If you do and you know how to build on Flow, they are accepting.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of posts from Zapper about all this stuff. So understand a little bit of that additional context, and hopefully that can inform how you feel about it. If it makes you feel better, great. If it doesn't, and it makes you feel less great, like that's good. Be more informed about how this stuff works so that you can make effective choices with how you play the game. We're at about hour 30 in. I think that makes sense for us to cut it short here. But final thoughts from Chugs, Greg, Taylor. Taylor, before we do that, thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome to talk through that buyer's guide that you have. Again, your Substack is mintedmoments.substack.com. If someone could, either Phil D or Luke, if you're in the chat, if you could send that out, mintedmoments.substack.com, that would be great. When we post the video as well, we'll put that link in there so people can subscribe to that Substack. But I really appreciate the first annual or first weekly, whatever we're going to call this. Really appreciate it. Any final thoughts before we break?
No, I'm just super excited, right? It's crazy. We talk about TopShot timelines being totally different, right? Like 2 days in TopShot is like a month in regular timeline. And I feel like it applies. It's amazing, right? 2 weeks ago, I decided like, hey, I should post an article on what I've been doing on TopShot. And here I am doing this and having a blast. So I'm just really excited for everything. I think the marketplace is getting in a better position. I had a great time being relaxed and taking my time, buying my one moment every 90 minutes. I thought it was great, but I know it's not necessarily sustainable to kind of limit it like that. But yeah, I'm just really excited and really happy to be with this community of people that are rallying behind it, and like being willing to dig into data is pretty cool. There's more folks out there like me, and it's nice to see them out there. And yeah, the Substack is Minted Moment, no S. So just singular.
Minted Moment.substack.
Substack.com. Got to plug it right.
Right. Yeah. So Chugs, Greg, what do they have to do before they leave though? You guys remember? It's a very
subscribe, put the like button, smash it. Smash both of them.
Smash that.
Follow all of us.
On your way out.
Follow every handle you see.
Follow Chugs and Bugs. Follow this. We'll send out a tweet as well. But
listen to the pod yesterday.
Yeah. Chugs was on the pod with LG. If you haven't listened to that, listen all the way through. Download it, cancel it, re-download it. Just help it out.
5 stars. 5 stars.
Yeah, exactly. 5-star reviews. Any thoughts from you guys? Chugs, let's go with you first.
I'd say it's okay to kind of be frustrated with the way things are, but also be excited about what's going on. Like we've kind of always said amongst our group of friends, two things can be true at the same time. Like you can be annoyed by sort of the marketplace kinks, but then also just really feel like there's something like fundamentally awesome kind of going on here. So I think sort of stick to those convictions if you have them. And then I mentioned it on the pod and I've just listened to it in further detail, but now, and I guess with the market getting back, it's going to get rolling again, but now's a good time to kind of assess kind of what you want to be in TopShot is what I said. Like, do you want to be a collector? Do you want to be an investor? Do you want to be a trader? Which again, the pod, I kind of expand on each one of those, but like, it's good to kind of have some sort of, and look, we're all a little bit of everything, honestly, but it's good to kind of just get a grip on sort of what you want to be, how you want to play this, right? The meta, the game within the game is really the good stuff. And so it's good to kind of like assess that for yourself before you kind of just jump in and start throwing money around. That's really all I got. Kevin Smith.
I think that's a compliment. I gotta say it.
Kevin, last I remember him though, wasn't he a lot heavier? For Jay and Silent Bob. Maybe he's lost some weight and he's looking a little.
I have a friend who claims our other friend looks like the pirate from Dodgeball as well. The real glass shattering for me is that when you realize that I sound exactly like Jonah Hill, everything is just out.
Super bad, man. I can't ever go back. You're getting off the show.
You can't unhear it. Craig, thoughts from you?
I mean, if you guys aren't on Twitter, get on there. I think there's a lot of good stuff being posted from the community. It's not just data, but a lot of other fun stuff going on there. So come interact with us, ask us questions. I think everybody here is happy to answer everything that comes into their DMs.
As best we can. There are some that I've missed.
True.
And if you just send me like, yo, like I'm probably not gonna just like fish for the next thing. So yeah, like I agree with that. And LG mentioned it as well on the pod yesterday, that dropped yesterday, I should say. Like what we're building at the First Mint is supposed to be something that lasts. It's not just like, let's ride TopShot and then that's it, right? Like we're planning to be the hub for this community in a lot of ways. And we're really happy that you're all participating in it. So with that, at 10:30, hour and a half in, really appreciate, 500 plus of you sticking around for the vast majority of this. We'll have some more giveaways upcoming. Keep an eye out for Twitter for what's coming on Friday. We've got a great show planned. I'm very excited for the guests that we're going to have. And you'll see more from us in the next week or so. But if we didn't get to your question tonight, please come back in next Tuesday. We'll try and answer as many of those as we can. I really like that portion of this segment, and having some folks weigh in on those things was helpful. So with that, we'll bid you good night. Have a great rest of your day and good luck.
One last thing, the pod coming up, I'm pretty sure we're going to have a whale. Whale's going to be on.
Whale Shark.
Big interview. LG is going to be talking to him. He's basically like the king of NFTs, essentially, in terms of biggest owner of all NFTs, not just TopShot. So really, probably some really, really good insight there.
Yep. He, for anybody that doesn't know it, Whale Shark Whale Shark owns the Whale Vault account, which is over $50 million in valuation right now. And it used to be that because there were two accounts. It was like Whale Vault 1 and Whale Vault 2. So yeah, great interview with Whale coming up. More stuff coming on Friday as well. So with that, we'll say goodnight. Have a good rest of your evening, everyone, and we'll see you later on.